experiences with the kind of work that the foundation is doing and its contribution towards city of Panjim.
I think the whole evening has been talking about the unknown, but I think we should define what we know. And one of the things I think is very important, and we should know this, is we should know how to give. The foundation is a lesson in giving. And this is extremely important aspect of the foundation for me. It has given a lot, and it is continuously giving. We forget a lot about giving, and perhaps even Charles talks about the unknown, but one thing is, I have been both pushing the foundation for something to be delivered, and I have been a bit selfish in my demands too. So if I had a problem at my work, I have turned and converted the foundation into a sounding board, and I got my work done through them. But it has helped, and it has delved a lot into very mundane problems, very simple problems, and come up with solutions in quick time. So if the foundation was all about architecture and I could follow anything, I somehow delved into it that waste management is also some sort of architecture and they should work on this. And we have come up with a solution for Panjim, which is tackling its waste problem in different areas, in segregation, in composting, in fraction waste collection, which is new to this part of the world. And when we talk in terms of segregating in 4 fractions, 5 fractions, in terms of composting, in terms of door-to-door collection, not many people are aware of what we are talking about. There's a backlash. We need documentation. We need precise information. And we need sort of a handbook or sort of a ready reckoner which I could then work with. So the foundation has mapped and routed my trucks, so I know where my trucks go. It has quantified the waste, the type of waste, how it comes, where it will go. It has timed my workers, my vehicles, and now I'm preparing to go on a high level where it could be geo-referenced, where this information could be tagged through technology like RFID. So sitting in my office, I know where the truck is, whether he has gone and collected the waste. So we need to be a smart city. We need to be technology savvy, and we need assistance, because all government work goes through files, and anything outside the rules has to go to the foundation, I guess. So these are things which the foundation has helped us in achieving in quick time, in really putting their enterprise, their skill, and it requires a different skill set which I think the foundation could bring into the city and help the city in various ways.
Just taking on what Sanjeet just mentioned, is tracking down various issues as far as the city are concerned really got us excited at the foundation, and we thought of mapping the entire city of Panjim, and we're taking it forth. We've been meeting the survey department, the collector, and we have Pankaj Joshi with us, who's one of the executive directors, who's also from UDRI Mumbai, and he will share with us, he's taking this whole project forward at the foundation, and he'll impress upon us as to how important this exercise is going to be for the city of Panjim and also for Goa. Pankaj, can you share your thoughts with us?
We started with this whole understanding of the foundation being in 4 verticals. So the first vertical would be the research projects, the projects which were in order to kind of orient the foundation as a think tank. The second was the research and resource center, which is more something which is a repository of ideas, knowledge. So the whole issue of having the archives here and then creating a kind of a suitable map for the city started from the research and resource center. The other two verticals being the public forum and publications, which would be Panji Reader. So the resource center, when we were working on this map, which was to guide tourists to understand the city properly, the kind of data which we were getting was substantially richer, and all that was falling through. It was not required on a tourist map, but essentially it was essential to kind of map and record that so that it can be used for the benefit of the city in terms of looking at traffic, in terms of looking at rerouting solid waste collections, or looking at dilapidated buildings, property tax collections. So we thought that there has to be a platform, a map, which can also have attributes of data on it, which can be used to help and to do a lot of problem solving, as well as be a method of governance where if you have the map with data, with a lot of information which can be collated, and if a common person through a mobile app can go and just, if he sees a particular problem, traffic congestion or any other issue, if he clicks and gets the global coordinates and sends it back, it could get registered onto that map, and this kind of crowding of the map through a larger public opinion would give clear directions of what would be the aspirations of people, what do they want in local areas. So essentially a kind of a two-way discourse, to which I think Sanjit was gracious enough to say that if that kind of platform develops, the local authority, Panji Municipal Corporation, could tag it and reply to it saying that if there is a particular problem, this is the concerned person and this is the person who's going to respond to it, and you close that particular query. If that kind of a two-way dialogue develops.
So what you're trying to say is that the public and the government could have an interface
which will be developed by the foundation, and which would be open. It's an open source thing which is available on web, on your mobile app, which can be used as an interactive thing.
If you could just elaborate on how public can use it to interact with the government, and what is it that can ease their lives or their problems or communication for that matter?
A simple thing that if you see that a particular pothole has developed on a road and you want that feedback to come of who's going to attend to it or who's going to kind of do it, a simple snap and sending it as a query through a mobile app would activate the road department to look at it, and somebody from there'll be a reply saying that this particular concerned sub-engineer or assistant engineer would be responsible to deal with it, and this would be done within a time frame of 7 days or 10 days. So the thing is that if the work is not done, the query gets escalated. It goes to the executive engineer, finally to the commissioner. The query has to close because that's a kind of a complaint which gets registered. So this is one such example. If it's garbage collection, it could be another such thing. If it's traffic congestion, illegal parking.
On the lighter side, I could think of stray dogs.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're chasing us all in the streets.
Also, bad illumination. Things like bad illumination and unsafe areas, and somewhere if there's eve teasing, which is a kind of common thing because of lack of illumination. Those are the things which can feed into your security and police network. So a larger database which has a multiple use.
I would like to ask Sanjeev as to, in case this is the kind of information that the foundation does and we develop an app, how responsive would the government be in taking it on board? Because this would mean transparency, this would mean accountability, because he said you got to close the inquiry, that if there's a pothole, the pothole has to get done or repaired. How would the government react to it, and how would you go about it, Sanjeev? From a bureaucratic point of view.
See, there is no doubt that this is the future. We have to be in sync with what is happening, and technology brings you close to the citizen and makes you more responsive to citizens' query. But it's also a challenge where the administration comes in. The administration should be tuned to the response in a particular response time. We should have it should have a mechanism to respond Pankaj would work on the technology and his app would be ready. Parallelly, the local administration should have a response mechanism which would be ready, which would be equally fast to the app. These things are happening worldwide, and Goa should not be an exception. Panjim should, in fact, allow to do some things first, and this would be one of it. And I feel that in certain sectors, we are ahead and we could beat the app. In certain sectors we'll have to work harder. So it's not that the whole gamut of sectors, right from sewage to water to electricity to road and to waste management, could be tackled at the snap of a finger or a press of a button on your mobile. But definitely that's the future and we should work towards it. So maybe in a couple of sectors, perhaps in waste management we are way ahead, not only in Goa but in India. In fact, we have surpassed all rules and regulations laid down by the center in terms of segregation, in terms of door-to-door collection, in terms of recycling, in terms of composting. So I don't really look at a rule made by New Delhi. Maybe I'll look at a rule made in Norway, which says 4% should go into the landfill, and I would like to beat them. So there I can get the app and easily implement it. But there are certain aspects where citizens and the administration should work together to get it quicker. And it is a partnership. It is not just a protest and a complaint register. It is a partnership which I would like to build with the citizenry, and the partnership should work on.
I guess even the elected representatives, the councillors, etc., could be brought on board for their wards. So even that can come into being. One more project which the foundation has worked, where I was leading the study, was about public transport in the state of Goa, as to how we could. What is happening by and large in Goa is every 5 years we have a new government coming in, and they say that we will solve your problems of traffic, because Panjim, Margao, Fonda, Mapsa, from 11 o'clock to 1 o'clock you can't drive into those cities because they are all there are traffic jams. Evenings 5 o'clock at Kadamba bus stand, you really can't go. We all face this, and the kind of solutions we hear is that we will build parking lots, or we will have pay parking, or we'll widen the roads, or the latest one, the mayor, which he wants the bylaws to be changed as far as parking norms are concerned. So these are very sporadic, and would giving more parking lots really reduce traffic congestion or bring in more cars is the question. So we did a study, and what we're trying to, and we made a report which we're going to present to the government, which says that it's a four-phased issue, that we have to look at a carrot and a stick kind of a policy, in terms of do look at bylaws, revise them, make parking expensive in the city, have hop-in hop-out buses, and have a BRT connecting from Pedne to Kankon. So what would happen is, you leave your home, you take a hop-in hop-out bus. In case people, most of people work between, let's say, Mapsa to Margao and so on and so forth, and use the national highway as essentially a state highway or a city road. So introduce a BRT within the highway, because the new highway is going to be done right now. So it's the right time for us to intervene and have two bays, so we can connect the whole of the state by a BRT. So the solution being that you leave your home, take a bus, go to take the hop-in hop-out, take a BRT, and go to the next station. So you can completely eliminate use of your car. So that's a study that we've done, and as I said, we are going to present it to the government. It is in line with, it came about when Sanjeet initiated the decongestion program for Panjim, that got us inspired, and that's another study that has been taken up by the foundation. With that, I would just like to, we'll have some few questions. If there's anybody in the audience who would like to ask the panel any questions about the foundation, they're most welcome. We'll have the mic circulated. Anybody?
I want to know if you're working with the panchayats at all in this, the foundation working with the panchayats?
We've done one project for Diwar, for the garbage management there, and Arminio could throw some light on what we've done onto this particular project. But yes, I think that we are pretty much centric towards the city of Panjim at this point of time, but I don't think we are averse to taking up issues. Yes, I think the kid could share as to what
you know,
it's
not that the work would go on in a city or in a panchayat, or I feel that we have to make models wherever possible, and it should be a partnership. Many a times we have worked, I think the foundation has worked with a panchayat and there was no response from the panchayat. So it's like, you know, taking the horse to the water and he doesn't drink there. Whereas in certain areas the responsiveness is huge and the project moves quite fast. The idea is to create a template which can be replicated at anywhere and everywhere. So if Panjim has a model of waste management and it is liked by people and the citizens should demand it in their panchayat, they can come to the foundation and, you know, copy the model. Of course the foundation would help. If they need a decongestion plan and Panjim is working hard to get it on board, I really feel that Panjim is a very manageable canvas and it could be an ideal canvas to work upon for Goa, for India. They're trying very hard to push this bus rapid for Panjim. So if it works, you know, people in Margao, Ponda, Mapsa could demand this from their government, from their local representatives. Okay, this is working here. It's just about creating a good template which can be replicable.
I don't know if you want to know any more about Diwar, but the fact is that in Diwar, the panchayat was keen to have the solid waste looked after and, you know, kept in a particular manner, separate and properly compartmentalized. Unfortunately, when we got into the details of it, they found that part of their so-called property was actually not theirs. So we've got to start de novo, finding a new place to implement what we've already worked on. I think that's going to happen. But when, I don't know.
Another important aspect that I would like to just share with you is that the foundation nurtures ideas and it brings it to a certain stage after which professionals or consultants or architects or engineers can take it further. So the foundation in itself does not do the work of an architect or of an engineer. So as I've said, it brings up ideas to a certain stage, see that there is meat into it, and then it is passed on. Can Pankaj share a little more on this aspect, as to we are not directly as consultants into the project?
No, I'm talking from my very limited exposure to the Charles Correa Foundation, but in Bombay there's a similar organization which has been working for the last 20 years, the Urban Design Research Institute. And the idea of the organization, even the foundation, is that it has to be a catalyst to see to it that the idea kind of grows into something tangible which can be implemented. But it's not the agency which is going to implement it itself. So it allows incubation of that idea into something which is not as brief as an idea, but works as a detailed project which can be taken to the local authority or the government or to the state. So it can be translated from an idea into a tangible project, which can be taken up by whichever agency which is kind of doing this work. So essentially our role is to incubate ideas, not to really fight for jobs or, you know, trying to run an architectural practice or a planning practice.
So we are not
absolutely not
up for work with the consultants or with architects in the city to take. So we're not doing that. So another project that interests all of us is the revival, or rather initiating the waterways. And I would like Charles to mention a few things, because he has very strong views on it, that we should get back the waterways. He did it for New Mumbai also, and we are starting a study on that. And Charles, if you could throw some light on what you have
No,
to
I
say.
think it's just the fact that what's beautiful about Goa is the water, and I think people come here and sometimes the tourists who take a ferry, and that's it, for the first time they're exposed to moving across on the water. And I remember in the old days that's how you came from Bombay, by ship. In fact, Srinivas starts that again, or somebody starts that steamship company again. In fact, you could have a ship which went all the way down the coast, down to Kerala. In fact, in Norway, you mentioned Norway. In Norway, they have all the towns of Norway are tied by something called Huttengluten, I think. And it was done in 1880 by the king. He brought all the shipping companies together because there's no railway in Norway in those areas. It's just mountains which come. So the little villages exist in towns, and they have no communication. And they were in winter and all. It's terrible. So he said every day they worked it out. Every day there'll be a ship leaving at a particular hour, one going north and one going south. I mean, along the coast. So at 4 o'clock, you know your ship leaves from there, and at 2 o'clock, the one going to Oslo, what have you. And it's fantastic because you go on that ship. That's how you see the midnight sun. It goes right into and you go on that ship, and first of all, people get on with all sorts of, some are tourists, very few. It's not really the tourist ships, which are quite different, which take you into the fjords. But also people get on with bicycles, with goats, and they get off 3 steps. And I thought, if you did that in India, in fact, this would be in your field, Moni, you would change the politics of India. If you actually had connections coming down from Gujarat, down to Goa, down to Kerala, and then going up the other side, and it would certainly solve our terrorists, because there'd be enough people moving along the water. It wouldn't be easy for them to come in and attack some. I'm serious, you'd get a tremendous amount of traffic. But anyway, we're just talking about Goa, and Goa was always water. The Portuguese didn't build that many roads, if any. We had one road going to Ribandar and on to that kind of stuff. But they really used the water. In fact, if you look at Delhi, all the great buildings of Delhi, the Humayun's tomb and all, and the Red Fort, are connected by water. The Mughals didn't build roads. There's a system of the river and then the canals, which are now been all ill-used. But what a beautiful city. In fact, at DUAC, once we did that as a project, and of course not implemented, but you could bring back the water to Delhi, and it changes, and then it's so short, the distance which connected through these. But here in Goa, it would be fantastic. In fact, I think Sanjeet had a wonderful idea that we would have these boats which would go, if you go up the Mandovi, then you turn left and you go up towards Aldona and stuff and Moira, you could have hop-on, hop-off buses so that you could buy a ticket for 24 hours or for the week and be perfect to discover Goa. I mean, for Goans too, so it would be extremely good. In fact, and I think it would earn money for whoever runs it. But how do you push it beyond the point that someone's going to do it? And that's very, very difficult, because for that we would need to have a team which had enough expertise about this.
I think we must excite Srinivas on this so he could take it up.
You can lead the team, Srinivas.
I mean, we could make him a team leader for this project, so he could take it further. We get so excited about our project, so I completely stopped asking you any questions you need to have. So any other questions that anybody has in the audience who would like to.
Thank you. Thank you, Charles. Coming from Delhi, I am extremely impressed by the degree of understanding and cooperation which seems to exist between the municipal corporation and the foundation. This is rather rare in our country, and I was just wondering, in the light of your experience in the bigger cities of India, do you think this could be a model which could be replicated, or do you think it is something which is, as it was, sui generis to Goa and not replicable outside, where problems are bigger, population densities, multiplicity of bodies, etc., much greater?
I think Moni, it's easier to do in Goa because you've got much smaller towns, and they're not even really cities in our terms. I think Panjim even today is less than 1 lakh, right? It's about 70,000. That's very small. And then you've got this Goa where everyone knows everyone else. You know, in a funny way, it's like a little community, and they're very concerned with what's going on. And then, so it's a wonderful place to start. That's why I was so happy to start this here, because I know if it's got any chance of working, it's here. Now, once you do it here, I'm sure there are other places in India. I think in bigger cities, Ahmedabad back in the 1960s had a lot of improvement. So did Bhopal. It always happens when some people feel responsible for the city. In a way, you can call them the elite, you can call them the self-appointed, but they, Kasturbai, Lalbai, the Sarabhais, they were concerned. At a certain point, they disengaged from the city, and then, like New York, no one's responsible for New York, and it could go anyway, But Paris has the responsibility, but that's a different model altogether. Here we're talking about direct interaction, and also the other thing is that the idea always has to have somebody who can implement it. And the good thing about Goa is that you can identify that person and he'll be accessible, including the CM. I mean, they are all accessible in Goa. People just go and wait there, and then whatever it takes, an hour or two, they'll get to meet the CM. So they can actually make that connection. That would be very difficult in Bombay or Delhi.
Yes, just what I was
impossible.
Yeah.
The way it is structured.
Yeah.
Any
other question was, I think.
Now I have 2 questions. Sorry. One is connected with the Charles Correa Foundation action in Goa. How can the Charles Correa Foundation means the mobile to the changings that are occurring in what concerns urbanization and cultural management here in Goa? How could they function in the political government action? Could they function with them aside or within? And the second, what was your biggest challenge in Lisbon in the project of the Champalimau Center? Because you are an artist and that shows in the project, and I'm curious to know, this is a curious question, a curiosity question. I would like to know, what were your biggest challenges between such a landscape?
No, I think I just was lucky that it was raining that day, so I knew I didn't see the site. But I saw this curve, and I knew about the river, and of course I'd seen it before. And then actually I'd done a building at MIT. I didn't know these people at all. So when they first phoned me and stuff, I couldn't see myself going to. I was quite old, 77 or so, starting a project in Lisbon. I said no. They said, well, anyway, but once I saw the site, and they had seen a building which I had done, which they liked very much. It was also a brain research center, the very big one, the biggest one actually, at MIT. So they had faith. That's the main thing. When people complain about how architects are ruining Goa, I think you need not only good architects, you need good clients. I'll return to that. It's very, very important. Now, these people were excellent clients. They didn't interfere. And you know what we actually did? We celebrate a great moment in Portuguese history without any kitsch. There are no tiled roofs and none of this rubbish, heritage stuff, because you are talking really about the heritage. And you can use your normal speaking voice. You don't have to dress up as Santa Claus to show that you believe in the past. And it's always about architecture. It always creates something new with your contemporary voices. When you start mimicking and caricaturing the past, you end up with a cartoon, like most of our 5-star hotels. And they agreed on that. And so in Goa too, I would appeal to people, and once again to you, Srinivas, to Mr. Dempo, because I really want to thank you and the Dempo Foundation for the tremendous backing they've given us, including this new plan, because the making of this map has to be given to some professionals, and it's going to cost money. And Srinivas right away said, we just spoke to him on the phone, but he understood what it would mean to Goa, because if it works, it puts Goa on a completely different level. Panjim, especially, it starts with Panjim, because it means you really get citizens involved. Like he mentioned that you see some garbage, so if you punch it in on your phone, your coordinates, and the garbage is here, then a reply should come from the municipal commissioner, which Sanjit has agreed to do, to say that this is your case number, this is the engineer in charge, and in 3 days it will be cleared. Now, if you don't see it cleared in 3 days, you can come back and then it goes to the... So what he's really doing, he's using all of us as inspectors without paying you. But he's involving you in the city. It's a very clever move. And I think Goa is ready for that. I'm quite certain it would work. What we have to do is get that map done, the basic map.
The first part of her, to answer the first part of her question is, as I understand your question, is how are we going to work within the political setup? I think we are pretty much independent of the political setup, because irrespective of what the political setup is, if the idea is worth taking and nurturing, the foundation will take it up. So
can't you cooperate directly with the government? Is that opened, or
for example, now the projects that have been done are we are working with the government. So the government has asked us to nurture some ideas, and which we have taken on board. So we are open to taking anything from the government too and developing it further for them in case they would want it.
Is the government open to taking your ideas?
Sanjit is doing it presently. I don't know about the rest. So
I don't know how long he'll last, but
and with his idea of transparency, what Charles said, how long he will last, again, that's another question.
Thank you very much for the archive, if I may convey from the architecture, although you have said. Well, how will it function? That's the first question. How do we... suddenly you would have a lot of people in the office, so is there a format, and if there is going to be some sort of regulatory mechanism? That is one. Secondly, about the map, like in 1998, that's the first time we did some listing of some heritage buildings in a way to map Panjim. That was a kind of an idea for PWD, and I happened to do it. And I've changed that there is a changing face to Panjim in itself. So mapping cannot be just one-time exercise in a way. And I'm just wondering if the foundation would take it up, can we give a direction also to the changes that are going to happen as a part of a map? And that it is not frozen in time, but it is also addressing the needs of today and tomorrow, catering for it. And not diluting. I love Panjim for its, I think in Goa at least, it's one of those places where it's a city and an urban, and yet not overwhelmingly out of scale in its presence, in its balance between open spaces and built spaces. And we hope not to lose it. So how do we make sure that we don't lose it in terms of mapping in itself? Thank you.
The idea of the map is, first of all, it's not a very static thing. It's a thing which keeps on kind of growing. And with people populating it through the information which is there, it would kind of change on a day-to-day basis. It's not static at all. So a GIS platform is what is there on ground based on your satellite image is put with your geo coordinates. So that's the true map in terms of whatever your roads are, where your thing is. Once you start populating it through data which comes from different people, it kind of itself regulates on the map. So essentially, it's in fact the opposite of a static map. It's something which will kind of change on a regular basis.
How would you do that?
Say, supposing if you have some feature and you say that I like this particular landscape feature which is there, if you send it through a mobile app, it populates onto that map, which is based on your web interface. It's there in the office on your server interface. So it is something which is more like what you would populate on a Google website or on a Wikipedia. It would be a similar exercise, but it is in real terms, in terms of your global coordinates. It is pinpointing where this is happening. So essentially, the fact is that your surveys and your land records will change on a longer basis, but this is something which will happen regularly as you work on it. So essentially, the foundation will only do the base mapping, which is the broader roads, the building profiles and all. And as it changes, it populates and it changes the profile of them.
What you're trying to say is one can, through another app or whatever, keep on having...
the same app keeps on
building it. So in case, I guess,
something
you want
which are constant,
it gets layered on. It gets layered on.
So you can have thousands of layers. Right now what we're working in Bombay is that every map has at least 12 to 13,000 different layers. So building condition has different layers, other aspects are different layers. So it keeps on layering it with data. And then as an analytical tool, researchers can come in and look at the data if they want to find a particular pattern. If there's a traffic congestion, you can work on those patterns to the data which is collected.
Is there a time frame for it?
The creation of the base map,
at least the 3, 4
the
or
base
5
layers. The base layers would be ready in a year's time. That's all.
To go to the first question, Harmini, if you could answer as to how the archives could be working and what time, I mean, how would one access the archives? That was the first question.
We have one computer dedicated for the archives, and you're right, there could be a lot of people who turn up suddenly wanting to refer that. So we will be keeping a system of appointments. You will have to call up the foundation and make an appointment and visit the foundation for the duration that you need to do the reference. So this is how we would make the archives available for the public. If there's a lot of people wanting to access the archives, then we would increase the number of tables that are available to access the archives. But right now it is with one table that we will share the archives.
I guess with that we'll close the evenings. So there's only one last question. Yes.
Just you mentioned that anybody can submit an idea. So what is the process or procedure for submitting ideas, and what is the criteria on which the foundation will decide which idea has to be implemented?
If you have an idea, you could email it to us, or you can come and meet us at the foundation. And the executive board meets once a month to discuss what ideas there are. And presently, it depends upon if it's at an urban setting or whether the foundation has the expertise to handle that idea. To take it further is what is looked at. And if it is merited, then definitely it will be taken forward. But right now, we haven't said anything that it has got to fit into a certain slot or an idea. Am I right?
I know what your question is. You must make explicit the criteria. I think this process is only starting. And if you become too explicit and rigid about it, you'd kill a lot of very good ideas. I think it's much better for the ideas to come up and then be discussed with the person among themselves, and then they decide. And maybe after a year or so, 6 months, they might be able to make explicit the criteria. But right now, it's not necessary. I mean, we're still waiting for someone to come up with an idea. I think if you have one, I think just why don't you do that?
And not the and not the one that Abhishek Bachchan talks about on the ideas, the real ideas. Yes.
I just want to know. It's a very good idea about the archives. Why can't it be online? If you're talking about just one computer and then timing it, why can't it be put online?
Sorry, I think people have to make a little effort.
Getting online is also an effort.
No, it's not that. It's usually archives are only. In fact, the reason we have this is that the RIBA wanted the drawings, and they look after them. They have very good, and I couldn't find any place. They're not great drawings. Don't get me wrong, but I thought people might want some students or something. So I started to 3 years ago. We started to digitize the drawings, scan them, and there were about 6,000 of them. They're more than that, but we chose 6,000. We didn't send all the working drawings, for instance, and because I said we'll keep them here. But once you've done the drawings, you know that the photographs are important. Then we realized that we should interlink them with the reviews, whatever criticisms, etc., plus or minus. And once you start doing that, you get involved also with many other public. These all the ones listed there, not things. Those are done by other journals run by people, architectural magazines who reviewed these projects. Now, if you try to put it on the net, you'd have to get all those permissions. You can't just put something on the net. You have to write to the editor and say that you wrote this article, can I reproduce it? Because it's written by someone else. So we didn't want to get into all that. And at least I don't want to. I don't have. It took 3 years to get to this point, because the real thing in the archives is to design the way forward, because all we knew, we had all this data. And the only reason we did it, in fact, the RIBA was stunned when they got it, because they've never seen that. Because archives just mean you leave a bunch of drawings and you leave some letters, files of yours about the projects, and then the scholar comes and pieces it all together. You follow? But here, because we had so much data which to be scanned, and because we wanted to make it available to students or anyone, we set up this program, which took a long time, and computer people, we had to take them on firms. There were 2 different firms who did this, but it came down to a very simple thing, and it's worth keeping it actual right now. If you put it on the net, there are lots of problems, not only the permission from the editors and the copyright, that's another thing, but also the fact is that you want this to be something scholarly. It's not meant to go viral or some rubbish like that, whatever they call it. You want it to really be, I want people to make that effort. I think one of the nice things of being a student or a scholar is to go to a library and sit down and then take the book and look at it. With computers you don't get quite that, but hopefully it will encourage people to do that.
So,
One second.
So I guess with that we'll close the session, the question answer series that we have.
No more questions.